Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Rays Rewind with Bell, Bushman, and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hey, welcome in. This is the Rays Rewind podcast presented by Sick Media. I am your host tonight, Drew. My co-host, Evan L. Bushman, he is on a cruise this week, I believe headed for the Bahamas. And so in typical Rays fashion, they decided to break news of a team sale as he was boarding. So I am here just one day after our episode from yesterday where we recapped the Red Sox series, and I don't want to go through that again. So if you would like to watch it, please feel free to do so. But we are moving on to bigger and better things. So I'm back here a day later to talk about the reports of a team sale potentially happening as soon as September. So let's get right into it. If you haven't heard, The Athletic reported today, Monday, July 14th, that the Rays owner, Stu Sternberg, has agreed in principle to sell the team to Jacksonville developer, group led by Jacksonville developer Patrick Zalewski, for a price tag of $1.7 billion. And I think the most surprising part of this is that the sale could happen as soon as September, according to The Athletic, which is really interesting because, I feel like I don't have a whole lot of memory when it comes to team sales in major sports. I don't know how long this process usually takes, but I do know that, in recent memory, just the White Sox, Jerry Reinsdorf selling the team, I believe, to an individual or agreeing in principle for that. But I don't believe that transition is going to happen for another few years, if I recall correctly. And so for this sale to potentially happen in the next month and a half to 2 months, as soon as that, is a bit shocking. I mean, because we could be talking about a Rays team that, maybe competing for a division title, more than likely after what we've seen the last 2 weeks, probably more competing for a wild card spot. But it could be a team, for better or worse, in a playoff run, in a playoff team potentially, and with a brand new owner and a brand new ownership group. So kind of interesting to say the least. This all kind of happened pretty fast. The initial reports of Zalewski being, leading the main group that had entered into exclusive discussions or negotiations with Stu Sternberg came out in June. And it was, radio silence kind of after all that initial reporting was done a little over a month ago. And, from what I've heard from others that are kind of in the know of these things, just listening to, local sports radio and other, Rays podcasts out there, and the people that have kind of the sources in the politician circles of Hillsborough County and Pinellas County, it's when these things when you're not hearing anything about it, right? Like the less you're hearing about it, the more likely it's probably there's progress being made. That's where that means the work is being done. And so personally, it was something that I kind of expected to hear about later in the season, potentially. I certainly wasn't expecting it during the All-Star break, just a month after, like I said, that initial reporting. But I am excited. Honestly, that is kind of the main emotion for me. I'm very excited for this news, for this change coming up in ownership. Obviously, things, I guess, could fall apart. I don't know the legality of all of that once it's agreed in principle. I do know, according to The Athletic, that the let's see, I believe or excuse me, I think it's actually the Tampa Bay Times. Let me see. Where is it? I had that pulled up. I believe that the owners still have to approve of the deal. I believe it's 75% of the ownership group. Okay, here it is. Tampa Bay Times. Zalewski's group would be subject to thorough vetting and review by Major League Baseball. The sale also requires the approval of 75% of the other owners. So, obviously there are still some hurdles to clear. Before something like this could become official. I would be shocked if any of those hurdles I just mentioned actually became a hurdle to getting this deal done. If we can recall before the season, as the stadium deal was crumbling with Sternberg, and you had Matt Silverman going on radio saying the team is not for sale, even though everybody knew that was, just kind of a word manipulation there, right? I mean, just because the team's not for sale doesn't mean that Sternberg wasn't willing to sell it to somebody willing to pay the right price. Um, if we recall at that moment in time, there were reports coming out that Major League Baseball was pressuring Sternberg, right? Manfred had been meeting with politicians in the area trying to make sure the stadium deal got done. And as it was crumbling and apparent it wasn't going to get done, you started hearing how Manfred was fed up with Sternberg and pressuring him to get out and to sell the team because it was obvious, right? Sternberg had burned those bridges with the politicians in the area on both sides of the bay, and that getting a stadium deal done just was not going to happen. And for the team to remain in the area that Manfred wants them to be in, which is Tampa Bay, with a really great TV market and a growing fan base, no matter what people think. It's in order for for the team to stay and for them to get a stadium done, it meant Sternberg had to leave, had to be out of the picture. And so you were hearing about Manfred pressuring Sternberg, and obviously that kind of added a new wrinkle to the situation. And so when you think about this being vetted and reviewed by Major League Baseball and the owners, on top of that, we've heard all along that Manfred wanted to get the Athletics and the Rays stadium situations figured out before the league talked more seriously about expanding to 32 teams. And the Athletics have broken ground on their stadium in Las Vegas. And now it appears the Rays are going to be under new ownership with a much, much, much better chance of getting a stadium deal done in Tampa, or I guess St. Petersburg, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I highly doubt that the owners who really love their money and would make a lot of money with 2 expansion markets and all the fees that come with that the ownership groups would have to pay for those expansion teams. I would highly doubt that these owners would not approve of Sternberg selling the team, especially considering how Sternberg has benefited from revenue sharing and things like that. I'm sure there are plenty of owners that are going to be happy to see him go. So I don't expect there to be any hurdles with Major League Baseball. Just a real quick background on Patrick Zalewski before we talk a little bit more about Sternberg. He is the CEO of Dream. Let's see, what is the name of his company? It is Dreamfinders Homes. He's 44 and chief executive and founder of Dreamfinders Homes. According to Forbes, he has a net worth of $1.3 billion. For those that are concerned about these things, that makes him the 2,531st richest person in the world, right behind me at 2,530. Sorry, Patrick. I am unaware of I seem to recall there were some names mentioned that were in the group. I know that we've heard from other people reporting on this that there are some really strong Tampa ties to this group that he is leading. So I don't have that pulled up, and I don't have those names on the top of my mind. So I am not remembering them at the moment, but definitely ties to Florida and to the Tampa Bay area. Now, the question on everybody's mind is, with the new ownership group, what does that mean for the Rays long term? Where are they going to be playing their games? Where is the stadium going to be built? Everything that we're hearing from the Athletic is that the Zalewski is expected to keep the team in Tampa Bay, which, to be honest, like I said, these owners love their money, and there would be no reason to move the team to Orlando, or people were worried about Jacksonville considering he's based out of there. It just did not make any sense financially for the team to be moved out of Tampa. Um, and it also says that he has a strong preference for Tampa rather than its current home in St. Petersburg. Again, not surprising. Everybody, I think, if Rays fans were honest with themselves, especially the ones that maybe lived in the Bay, and maybe they're the ones that live in St. Petersburg, are just they don't have any trouble believing this already. But it's been clear from the start that Tampa is the place where the stadium should be. Obviously, we just want the team to be in the area. So if that minute had to be in St. Petersburg, then that was fine, and that was kind of what we were facing with Sternberg. But if Zalewski is able to come in and really build some relationships with the politicians. And I believe he met with Jane Castor, the mayor of Tampa, a few months ago. Evan Klosky reported that when those were back in June. We heard Chris Latvala on our podcast earlier last month talking about, the news of, Zalewski's group kind of getting exclusive discussions with Sternberg and Latvala was talking about how, he expected the team to be in Tampa based on what he knew about the group, the new ownership group, and where they wanted to build it. And Latvala even said himself that he would, if he was the owner of the race, he would build it in Tampa. Obviously, there's a few sites that people will talk about, and it's hard to know where it would end up. But I think this development with the ownership group is as positive of a development as you can have for the team, having a long-term solution and having a new stadium in the city of Tampa, which is something Rays fans have been wanting, hoping for decades. And it seems like that is something very much a possibility now with Zalewski. I mentioned this earlier. I think I'm excited about this. Obviously, I think you won't find many Rays fans that aren't excited about this. There's been a lot of good with Stu Sternberg as the owner. I think it's easy to pile on Sternberg because he's just burned so many bridges politically. Just made a mess of the stadium deal. Just really backed himself into a corner where, he was just never going to get a deal done, and it didn't have to be that way. I think had he ponied up more money for the Ybor City stadium deal that was back, I don't know how many years ago that was. I think there were some real opportunities for the team to have a long-term solution under Sternberg, and it just, for whatever reason, he just couldn't get it done. And so it's easy to pile on, but we can't forget about the on-field success. Since 2008, the team is 1,494 wins to 1,248 losses. It's the third best record in the majors. It's a 545 winning percentage. A third best record in the majors since 2008. So you're talking about consistent success now for 17 years. They've made 9 postseason appearances. They've essentially hired 2 managers in the last 17 years or 18 years. I think Joe Madden came on in 06, 07, so maybe 19 years. So you've got an ownership group with Sternberg that, say what you will about, the financial stuff, the political stuff, but he is just absolutely been nails with his the on-field talent, with building a consistent winner on a low payroll, consistently at one of the lowest payrolls in the majors. He's had some of the best baseball minds running his team. You think about Andrew Friedman, who's now leading things at the Dodgers with the Dodgers. Chaim Bloom, who went on to lead the Red Sox after being the head of baseball ops for the Rays for several years. And he's set to take over for the Cardinals here in a couple, I believe, next season. And now, Eric Neander, who has got a great reputation throughout the league. There's just been so many positives about the team with under Sternberg, and so you got to give him credit. And so if I'm honest with myself, there's a little part of me that's a little nervous about a new ownership group. Um, because it's almost like, the devil the devil you don't, right? I mean, we kind of know what we're getting with Sternberg, but financially, and certainly with the drama of the stadium, but on field, I mean, it's just been such a winner and a team that fans like myself and everyone in the area could really get behind. Frustrating at times for sure, but yeah, you just got to tip your cap. And so I'm nervous a little bit because again, it's great, right? I mean, I think getting a stadium built is obviously going to be the biggest win for Zalewski, and that's going to be a big moment for this franchise and for our fan base, knowing that we never have to talk about a stadium situation again, and that this team is here to stay for real. But, I mean, how is he going? What is he going to do about the front office? I think, a lot of people will look on and say, well, pretty easy to say, yeah, dude, you don't touch the front office, right? And that's part of what I think the value of the Rays is at, is the front office machine that they've built. Um, if Zalewski's a smart guy, which you think he's made a bunch of money, you think he's probably a smart guy, he comes in and doesn't touch anything about the front office, but he might want to. He might want to bring in his guys, right? There's no guarantee. So what does that mean for the team on the front office side, for the on-field side, right? I think we assume Zalewski being, willing to pay 1.7 billion or be a part of a group that's paying 1.7 billion dollars for a team. I would assume that means he comes in and, hey, suddenly maybe we don't have to say goodbye to all of our stars, right? Maybe a Junior Caminero gets a long-term deal, or maybe a Shane McClanahan who's coming back from injury, and you assume he's going to establish himself back as an ace, right? Maybe that means we can keep him and sign him to a longer deal, right? Like, you think about all these players that the Rays have had over the years under Sternberg, and David Price, trading a guy like James Shields, Evan Longoria, right? He's somebody that should never have left, right? And he should only have been a Ray, with the Rays. But with Sternberg, right? Those were considerations that we had to always face, players. And how many times as fans have we heard that about being a fan of the Rays? It's always a different group of guys. They never keep their stars. They never keep their players. It would be great for Zalewski to come in and spend some money, right? We're maybe middle of the road in terms of payroll. It doesn't have to be at the top, like with the Dodgers or the Mets. I'm not asking for that. But I am asking, instead of maybe 27th or 28th in payroll or even 30th, how about we get into those teens? That near midway point, I think, would be an awesome place to be. But there's just no guarantee that that's going to happen. And we haven't heard anything about Zalewski's strategy with payroll, right? We don't really know what that's going to look like, but certainly we can hope for the best, but we don't know. And we're not going to know until he comes in and takes over. And so there is a little bit of nervousness there. But I think at the end of the day, there's so much more positive that outweighs any of the nervousness that one might feel about this, just with knowing that the stadium situation of the team staying in Tampa is so much more likely. It's just so much more of a relief to know that we're on this path to the Rays being under a new ownership group. And who knows, maybe they will come in and spend money, and we're signing free agents and keeping guys and keeping our stars and actually building some continuity. Would be a really exciting development. I will be interested to see if this actually closes in September. I wouldn't be surprised to see it extend into the off season, just because everything going on at the end of the season. But certainly would be interesting to see this team on a playoff chase, and then suddenly having a new ownership group for the playoff run. But it's nonetheless very exciting for the team, very exciting for the fans. And I hope that we see this come to fruition in September, and we see, just the development of of this group with the stadium deal, and we just see some real progress being made so that we can stop finally having to face this question of where the team going to be in 5 years. We know they're going to be back at the Trop next year and through 2028 and I think 2029. But it would be so great for us to finally put this to rest and know that our team is staying in Tampa Bay. And so, Rays fans, let us know what you think about the news. Let us know in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be talking about this, I'm sure, as things develop over the next few days, and certainly as more things come out closer to the sale being made final, maybe later this year. We will be sure to cover that. And I will be back, I believe, later this week, talking a little bit about second half storylines. And then Evan and I are planning to record again after the Orioles series this weekend. So we got a lot coming up, and the trade deadline's just around the corner. So there is a lot happening. And with the Rays being only a game and a half out, and they're right in the thick of the playoff race despite a really bad 2 weeks. And we've got Junior Caminero in the home run derby right now. It looks like he's moving on to the second round, which is exciting. And we've got 4 All-Stars. So there's a lot to be positive about with this team, not to mention this news of a sale potentially happening as soon as September. So until next time, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with L. Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.